Underhells Campaign. Game 13. Goliath Combinat of the Boiling Fury vs Delaque, Will of the Old One. Mission: Lost in the Ruins. Delaque, the leader of the campaign so far, both in gang wealth and wins, has been challenged by Goliaths in the second cycle of the campaign. The mission itself is quite interesting. 6 potential exit points are placed along the edge of the board. Gangs alternate deploying one model at a time, 6 inch away from any other model, friend or foe, and 9 away from board edge. Fighters can use a scout action at the exit points when within 1 inch. On a roll of a dice we find out if it is a true exit or a dead end. If a dead end is found, the next scout action probability is increased. Once the true exit has been found, any model can leave the battlefield when it is within 1 inch in the end phase. Malstrain horrors spawn from random potential exit points starting from the first turn. For the Ash Wastes conditions we got Crystalline Maze. Each model that moved more than 6 inch during its activation and ended on the battlefield surface must test intelligence or become insane. Ash Clouds increase the visibility range to 18 inch, from the default 12 for this phase of the campaign. After some review of the scenario, we decided to adjust crew selection to balance both forces. We are going to use random 7 for both gangs with a caveat, already done in previous games of Archeo Hunters aligned gangs, that the Abyssal Ferryman team will also take part in the randomization. Delaque got 2 of their most expensive models, while Goliaths didn't get their leader. This makes Combinat a 600 credit underdog. Those were exchanged for 1 additional gang tactic, 1 underdog tactic, 1 random brood scum, and a tier 3 bounty hunter. As we don't have many good offensive options in this tier, Goliath decided to get Aero's Slagmist. He is a decent supportive character, with Medici kit and respectable defensive capabilities, for toughness, 2 wounds, and a bio booster. Delaque decided to spend most of the money in downtime on a new champion. Phantom Abhus has been equipped with a grave gun and mesh armor, with a doppelganger skill. Other purchases include a web gauntlet for Avash and psychoteric worm for Hypnose. During deployment, both gangs were vying for advantageous position on the board. Sniper Xenorth took a spot on the highest level of the ruined building. He was countered by the bonus Hive Scum fighter deployed on top of the Poison Tower building. Between them, on the ground level, Ganger Cypher and Delaque vehicle blocked off this side of the board. The smaller ruined Mechanicum building was controlled by Goliaths. On the top level was Stormsplash with a stub cannon, supported on the bottom by Spikestab, a bully with a fighting knife. They were opposed by a strong duo of 2 champions, Uvash with twin flechette pistols and a web gauntlet, and Abhus on top of the tower with a grave gun. The center of the board was taken by an Horus leader of the Delaques. With recent upgrade from kill counts, his rig was providing him with a solid 3+ armor save, so he stood right in the open, tempting Goliath Mauler deployed nearby to shoot at him. Tamer, who just recently lost his Sumpcroc pet, was also eyeing the Horus leader, deploying at the bottom floor of the Poison Tower. The rest of the fighters were scattered around the board, staying in safety of a cover. The first group of horrors, 3 brood scums including a leader, appeared right next to one of the Delaque psychers. First activation from them was used to retreat with Hypnose into a cover, making all the scums chase after Goliaths in the nearby building. But with heavy cover their shots were not successful. First blood was drawn by the Delaque sniper, who used his infrasight to aim at Firespure. The long rifle round made short work of the enemy high toughness and furnace plates, scoring a serious injury. Thankfully Aeros was deployed nearby, and his Medici kit could prove useful in bandaging the Goliath fighter. He just had to wait till enemies around that area moved first, so he would not be risking his own life. Horus started the duel between him and Goliath Mauler by advancing and firing his bolt launcher at the vehicle. No damage was scored, however. He repeated the action just after Mauler unsuccessfully shot him with his twin bolt guns in his own turn. One of the bolt launchers jammed, but a devastating hit was scored and 2 hull points were lost, as well as a stalled condition for the Mauler. The restart was successful at the end of the turn. At the other side of the map, Ganger Cypher surprised the enemy champion, who infiltrated inside a Munitorum crate. With the help of violent-minded tactic and his increased movement characteristic, he moved in front of the crate and shot with a solid slug of his shotgun. Nightmare was thrown even further back into the crate, but 1 on a wound roll allowed him to survive. He stood up and returned the favor, but his combat shotgun only pinned the enemy. In the middle of the board, Goliaths tried to dissuade the enemy from advancing towards the firespure position. A smoke grenade was thrown to cover the rescue mission. Finally, towards the end of the first turn, bounty hunter arrows advanced and helped with Firespire's recovery. But, due to Crystal Maze rules, he failed the intelligence check and went insane. In the second turn, a gene stealer spawned amidst the duel between Oris and the vehicle. His focus was however on Tamer, who was just slightly closer to him and still covered inside the safety of the poison tower. Oris decided to ignore the mauler for now and follow behind the gene stealer and eventually fire some shots towards them. But even with stray shots, he did not manage to do any damage. In the middle, the freshly recovered Firespure didn't have opportunity to fire his bolt gun, as a well-placed grave gun blast hit both him and the bounty hunter. Graviton blast cut through his armor and he again fell down seriously injured. Arrows didn't receive any damage, but the difficult terrain from Grave Explosion would make it hard to spread out and lessen the pressure from Delaque. The shotgun combat continued near the crates. Nightmare peeked around the corner, avoiding being seen by other enemies, and seriously injured Cypher. But, even crawling, with 7-inch movement stat, it would take the Goliath champion some time to catch up and finish him off. Broodscums kept advancing on the Goliath positions. One managed to hit Spikestab in the back, forcing him to get up and reposition on the other side of the ruins. Even with some pipes blocking the easy path, Uvash approached the wall and fired both of his pistols. Toxin resulted in a serious injury, but Goliath fighter recovered at the end of the turn. Delaque vehicle moved with full throttle forward, trying to cut off horrors from attacking more fragile gangers. Turn finished with the Xenorth scoring a serious injury on a hivescum on the opposite building. When Arrows finally activated, he had to check his behavior due to insanity. With a failed roll, he would activate as a brood horror. Despite just helping bandaging his fellow fighter, he leveled his last pistol and shot Firespire in the head. The Medici stims applied in the previous turn worked wonders, however, and Firespire rolled a lesson learned result. Tamer was contemplating charging the approaching horror, but eventually tried firing plasma at the enemy leader. This proved fatal in the next turn, when the Gene Stealer charged him. Claws easily cut through his furnace plates and Champion was taken out of action with a critical injury. He was immediately avenged by the Oppressor, who wanted to shoot at Cosm, but stray shots finished off the malstrain mutant. On the far end of the board, Hypnos had a detour to scout the first escape hatch. After failing to find the exit, he continued forward. He sent his Psychic Worm to attack the enemy prospect with a Storm Welder. Pet failed with his attacks and in retaliation was seriously injured with an unarmed attack. A tide of Broodscums took over one of the corners of the map. Stormsplash ignored them and finally managed to shoot down Abhus from the tower with his stub cannon. Delaque Champion plummeted down, further increasing damage, and resulted in a serious injury. Uvash shot back, seriously injuring Stormsplash, and came over to help his comrade. Assisted recovery at the end of the turn was successful. Same could not be said for Goliath Ganger. He bled out with an eye injury roll. Goliaths did not ease the pressure, and Spikestab bravely followed both champions and issued a challenge to Uvash. His fighting knife scored 1 damage on the Delaque Phantom, but the retaliation strikes took him out. Nightmare had to temporarily halt his chase after Cypher, who managed to recover from his serious injury. One of the Horror Gene Stealers appeared close nearby, but one blast from a combat shotgun put an end to the mutant. Cypher tried to take that opportunity to shoot at a distracted fighter, but this time missed. In the next turn, Nightmare managed to pivot and take out the enemy ganger with another solid round. Hypnos charged at Zapper to help his pet, who managed to recover from the serious injury in the previous turn. He missed his initial set of attacks, but when the enemy tried to flee from combat, he adjusted his aim and landed a serious blow, taking him out of the mission. Oris Cosm finished the severely damaged Goliath vehicle and moved towards the nearby exit point. Scout action revealed that it was a dead end, leaving 3 potential exit points. Meanwhile, the amount of horrors on the board started to overwhelm both gangs. With just a few fighters left on the board, Goliaths broke, but their fighters kept passing nerve tests and stayed in the fight. There was still hope that they will be the ones that find the true exit and snatch the victory. The corner with the most horror present was completely blocked by the ferryman vehicle. Average ballistic skill didn't mean much, when stray shots were almost guaranteed to hit one of the enemies. Ferryman also kept driving into big clumps of the brood-scums and tyramites, killing a few in the process. With just 2 Goliath fighters on the board, one of them being the bounty hunter, Delaque changed tactics. Despite being shot by the enemy gang, they started protecting them from oncoming hordes of horrors. Clumped tyramites have been destroyed by a well-placed grave blast, the rest being regularly taken down by a hail of flechette rounds. It wasn't without any losses, however. When Xenorth started to move down the ruins to reconnect with the rest of the gang, he was ambushed by a tyramite, who took him out. One of the shotgun shots from Broodscums seriously injured Avash, but Abhus protected him from further damage and helped with a recovery. Spirocosm spent 2 turns trying to reach the opposite side of the map, where 2 of the 3 exits were. His haste almost ended tragically, when he used both actions to reach one of the exit points. He failed the crystal maze test, became insane and broke, running towards a large group of Broodscums and tyramites. In the meantime, Nightmare was sneaking towards the Delaque leader from the other side, trying to avoid any horrors on the way. When he was about to be in range of his shotgun, however, he failed his nerve test and ran away. With just Aero slag mist left on the side of the Goliaths, it was the last moment for Delaque to prevent the game ending in a draw, but they had to find a correct exit point immediately. Cosm managed to take control of his faculties and pass the rally test, and got rid of his insanity. In the next activation, he retreated back towards the mission objective, and shot down horrors approaching in a funnel, stray shots, and spread from rapid fire, making short work of them. After getting rid of the enemies, he successfully scouted and found the true exit point. At the end of the turn, he escaped, securing the victory for the Delaques. Post-game summary. After adding up all the credits from terrains, subplot, fixer, and wrecked vehicle, Delaque ended up with a solid 170 credits to spend, and with a trading post roll of 14, they have the opportunity to further increase gear on their fighters. MVP was awarded to Avash, who controlled the middle of the board, switching between offense and support. Goliaths had to sweat with Tamer visiting a rogue dock hanger-on with a critical injury. Last game he let his pet Sumpcroc die, and now his life was also on the line. Fortunately, Rogue Doc managed to patch him up, without any side effects. Stormsplash will have a much harder time from now on to hit enemies with his stub cannon after suffering an eye injury. Nightmare was the only fighter in Combinat that somehow managed to keep his cool and perform well throughout the mission and was given MVP. After 2 back-to-back disappointing games, Goliaths will need to find a way to scrape a win in one of their upcoming battles. But they have some time to think about it, as we are going to have the Van Saar gang facing the Gene Stealer cults in a zone exploration mission. See you next time.